Limerick beat Waterford 118 to 19 points in Thurles in what was a fairly dramatic clash in the Munster Championship opening round. I think Waterford, the way that they didn't manage that number of minutes after the red card, or second yellow card I should say, for Groat Hegarty would frustrate them massively, because the game was there for them, but they butchered a couple of chances. And Limerick, who have shown coolness in so many huge games in recent seasons as they chase a 4 in a row of All-Ireland titles, they managed to get across the line. They managed to steady down and get a few scores, and ultimately you just wonder though, with Limerick and the narrative around them now, with the red card obviously to Hegarty, and the fact that Seamus Flanagan was very lucky with connecting with the head of Stephen Bennett with his shoulder, and of course Barry Nash as well, who put in a couple of tasty challenges and only got a yellow card. That narrative is going to surround them for the year now, as it has done in recent times, and they've coped with it, but it is something that's probably going to be very much coming into the microscope. With Nash, he obviously flicked Stephen Bennett in the head, and Bennett came in for an awful lot of punishment throughout this game, and I think some Limerick supporters will say Cian Lynch got the same off Calum Lyons. But Nash had that one that he got the yellow card for. Then a little bit later on, he followed through on Lyons when he was clearing the ball, and his hip seemed to connect with Lyons' head, which probably would have been a yellow card minimum if the referee had spotted. And then later on, he flicked Bennett to the ground when he stuck out a hurley as Bennett was clipping the ball free inside the 14-yard, albeit outside the penalty area, and nothing was given for that either, bar a free. So I think Limerick can consider themselves quite fortunate from that point of view. Early on in the game, the Treaty were all over Waterford. They were going ahead at ease, 6 points clear. Looked like they were, just the discipline in their tackle. It looked like Waterford couldn't get near them. But the discipline in the tackle, as I've kind of outlined already, that seemed to catch up with them somewhat. They weren't winning tackling, they weren't getting winning tackles cleanly, they weren't getting in and hassling Waterford with the same effectiveness as they had been. And they were giving away free after free, and Stephen Bennett's going to knock those over all day, as he did. But late on in the game, Ozzie Gleeson, he'd come on, he'd made a bit of a difference. Patrick Fitzgerald had also, but Gleeson probably tried to force a goal chance late on, when if he had to just knock it over the bar, it would have been back to within one. Instead, he tried to force the goal. He was kind of snuffed out, and then he flicked the ball up in the air, and eventually it was cleared. If you had to knock that over the bar, give Waterford a chance to be back within one, and then maybe win a puck out and knock it over the bar. But as it stands now, they're up against it going ahead in the championship. They're not going to have Tig de Burka, who went off, and apparently his season is over. John Kiley says he's a bit frustrated with the narrative and the BUL Bull SH1T that's been talked about his team, in terms of people trying to build them up and make it seem like the 4 in a row is a done deal. But look, I think this makes the championship really exciting. It probably would have been even more exciting if Waterford had to manage to get a result here. But so it is. Limerick, they collect a victory. Yet again, it's going back all the way to 2019 since they were beaten in the championship. Really a case of seeing it out with that experience that they have at this stage. And big players stepping up, like Tom Morrissey especially was one of those late on who stepped up for them. But so many lads played really well, despite them being down to 14 men for 20 odd minutes in the latter stages of the game. Just shows that the best teams out there, they don't capitulate when they go down a man. They find a way to get across the line, and that's Limerick continuing their winning run, and it sets up a pulsating game against Clare next week, especially with the Banner really needing a result.